whatever Trump throws at us, we can handle. We can handle it because we've been through far, far worse in our history. And my hope is that South Africans all turn around with one voice and tell Trump to fuck off with it.
The average income of white South Africans are vastly higher than black South Africans. No. They have better schools, they have better education, they have private health care. This is the land of milk and honey if you're white.
To the 50 Afrikaners who fled to the US, calling themselves refugees, you are not refugees. You are just a case study of white flight dressed up as martyrdom. You're not escaping violence, you're escaping equality.
We do not have a genocide in South Africa.
This South African farmer wants to set the record straight. He wrote an open letter to US President Donald Trump after Trump offered Afrikaner farmers refugee status.
But it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place, and farmers are being killed. They happen to be white.
The first group of 59 Afrikaners traveled to the US in early May. It has raised questions about why a group of white South Africans of Dutch and French descent are being granted refugee status when the Trump administration has stopped all other refugee programs. De Jager represents a large farmer organization which has members across South Africa. He says while it's true that farm murders are a major problem, Trump hasn't got the facts straight.
I wrote the letter to Trump because I feared that he might have a misunderstanding of what is going on here. We thanked him for having sympathy with our cause, but we also said, rather help us to make things better here. Help us to, within our lifetime, fix the problems we have here. And it's not only a race thing. Black farmers have similar problems too, and we need those problems also to be attended to.
Trump's genocide claims are a result of brutal attacks on farmers in South Africa. Most of the murders happened during armed robberies. There's a large memorial at Nampo, South Africa's largest farming expo, dedicated to farm murders. It contains around 2,800 names, going as far back as the 1970s. One thing that stands out about this event is the diversity. We've seen many Afrikaners, but we've also seen many black people in attendance. This memorial includes the names of black farmers who were victims of farm murders, debunking the idea that it's a crime that only affects white people. And those we spoke to say while they are concerned about farm murders, they don't want to leave South Africa.
If people want to do it, I think it's a good idea. It gives them an option out if they want. But I personally would not do it. This is my country. And that is something that Mandela fought for, is for freedom for all.
I cannot really say there's a genocide in South Africa. The only thing that is happening is it's a crime in general. You know, in every country, in every places, we do have crimes, irrespective of race, you know. So I think the genocide issue, it's exaggeration.
Hey, lovely people, and particularly a quick word to my American friends who might be tempted to believe what Donald Trump is saying about South Africa, my home country, where I happen to be right now. Him and Elon Musk are racist twats who have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Because what they're doing is taking the word of a fringe racist group called AfriForum and other disaffected whites, disgruntled by the end of apartheid, feeling hard done by, and much like the Israelis, victimizing themselves when they are not victims at all, bitching about how, you know, land redistribution is racist against whites. These are such ignorant provocateurs, and it's going to backfire on them. South Africans' majority, the black majority, and it's a multiracial, multi-tribal society now, only own a tiny proportion of the land versus the size of their population. And while white South Africans make up 7% of the population, more or less, they own about 70% of the decent land. And so the redistribution of land is to address past inequities, and the vast majority of South Africans agree and understand why that's happening and that it's a good thing. It's also under a very strict mechanism. Now, not everyone agrees, of course, with the mechanism, but the principle is what racists like Musk and Trump are railing against here on behalf of a bunch of assholes who equate equality with oppression, because for so many years, decades and decades of the apartheid era, they were the oppressor. And as we know, whenever the oppressor looks at something like equality, it suddenly becomes oppression of him. So fuck Elon Musk, fuck these idiots from AfriForum. You probably know nothing about them, but this is a bunch of, the equivalent of your kind of Proud Boys hanging on to some past that never actually existed. And a past in which the vast majority of people in this country were oppressed, suppressed, and treated much like, fortunately not quite as badly as the Israelis treat the Palestinians. So this whole railing against South Africa, I'm going to add one more point. South Africans on the whole, all of us, white, black, Indian, colored, which is not a term, is a specific term for those of you who might get offended by that, a specific racial group. We are very, very resilient people. As a country, we have gone through a great deal, both in terms of the early part and then the transition from the apartheid era to genuine multicultural democracy. And whatever Trump throws at us, we can handle. We can handle it because we've been through far, far worse in our history. And my hope is that South Africans all turn around with one voice and tell Trump to fuck off with his sanctions and his fucking withdrawal of aid and his tariffs and all of this stuff, because we can live through it. What I'm not sure about is whether Americans can, because for the most part, all the stuff that Vivek Ramaswamy said recently about Americans being soft, not prepared to put in the hard graft, and all this stuff, I tell you, for the experience of most foreigners is true. And it's not true of every American I know. Some of them are the most hardworking, wonderful people in the world. But as a general principle, South Africans are far more resilient and able to withstand this kind of bullshit authoritarian pressure than any American population. So to my fellow South Africans, let's stick this out. Let's stick up the middle finger to Trump and particularly to Elon Musk, because we know from his background that he left South Africa in the apartheid era and retains the racist bullshit that's motivating these people like Creel. And now that I'm in South Africa, I'm seeing their awesome, ridiculous tweets. Fuck those guys as well. They're the past. Most of us are the future, and it's a beautiful future.
Is there a white genocide in South Africa?
No, there's no sign of it, never has been. In fact, whites are economically the strongest group. They benefited from democracy more than anybody else. 64% of all boardrooms in South Africa are still white. The average income of white South Africans are vastly higher than black South Africans. No. There are better schools, there are better education, private health care. This is the land of milk and honey if you're white.
Has any land been expropriated in South Africa without compensation since the first all-race election in this country?
I'm not aware of anyone. Not a single farm that I'm aware of was expropriated without compensation since 1994.
So how do we interpret President Trump's executive order?
It is possible that South Africa has offended the United States with his policy on the Palestinians, and it could be that with his policy on Russia, the ambiguities of those policies and its relationship with the Chinese. It could be. I think that does play a role. But there was something very, very sensitive that was touched upon. And in South Africa, right-wing groups, so-called civil society groups, we know that they have access to the Trump administration because they claim that. And if you listen to what Trump has said, it corresponds exactly with the genocide narrative that they sell and that they market, and that whites are victims of the democratic system and the constitution in South Africa and legislation. So there's an overlay, there's an immediate overlay, it's an unquestionable overlay between what Trump says and these right-wing groups have said. So I'm afraid I have to believe them when they say they have direct access to the Trump administration, and we see it in what Trump has been doing.
To the 50 Afrikaners who fled to the US, calling themselves refugees, you are not refugees. You are just a case study of white flight dressed up as martyrdom. You're not escaping violence, you're escaping equality. South Africa didn't chase you away. you ran. Yes, South Africa is one of the most violent countries in the world. Yes, brutality exists. But let's be honest, violence affects all communities, not just white farmers. Black, coloured, Indian, and yes, white people are all targets of a national crime crisis. What we have is a breakdown in safety, not a white genocide. This is not ethnic cleansing, it's criminal collapse, and running to the US won't fix it. You are part of a 7% minority, but somehow still manages to control over 70% of the wealth. That is not persecution, that's privilege on a guilt trip. And let's be real, if we tried to relocate just half of the Afrikaans population, it would take decades, billions in logistics, and you'd still end up culturally homeless in a country that don't want your apartheid baggage. You're not brave, you're not victims. You're scared of a world where you don't get to be in charge, and that makes the rest of the Afrikaans community cringe, because you make us look weak. South Africa is broken, and it's our problem to solve. So if you don't have the spine to do so, stay gone.
Donald Trump's attempt to humiliate the South African president today was not in the United States' interest whatsoever, nor was it intended to be. It was intended to serve an audience of one person, that apartheid Nepo baby, Elon Musk, who has the white supremacist goal of reasserting apartheid in South Africa. And of course, this effort is going to fail. South Africa has gone through much worse than Donald Trump and Elon Musk. No policies will change, and the only result will be that the United States is humiliated, like we always are under this president.